In Canadian politics, one of the worst brand associations that you can have is with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's so bad, a lot of provincial Liberal parties either come out and say that they have no association with the federal party, or they just outright change their names. But there is one brand association even worse than Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, so much so that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is scared to be affiliated with this person. And this is British Columbia NDP Premier David Eby, one of the biggest generators of radical left-wing progressive policy and the main man who is still championing decriminalization of drugs in Canada. You know it's super bad because federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has been focusing in on this like a hawk, trying to tie the two men together, and it's not difficult to do. So this is a post that Pierre Poilievre, I believe, made yesterday, and he says Trudeau exempted BC from the criminal code ban on crack, heroin, and fentanyl in parks and hospitals. After tanking in the polls, the BC NDP did a panic pre-election flip-flop admitting Eby and Trudeau were wrong. Common Sense Conservative demanded emergency parliamentary debate, and then he goes on basically saying that there must be federal policy put into place to stop decriminalization in the provinces. David Eby right now is actually trying to walk back some of his decriminalization policies by weekly coming out and saying, can you guys stop smoking crack in parks and do it in the parking lot instead? That's effectively what his new pivot is on drug policy. Not actually ending decriminalization, but just trying to put in place time, place, and manner restrictions on decriminalization. And so now Justin Trudeau, for some reason, will not actually grant the BC government to enforce the law on it, like not using illicit drugs in public parks, because Justin Trudeau doesn't even want to associate himself with what David Eby is doing. Because if Justin Trudeau was to come out and actually allow the RCMP to start arresting people again in these public parks, he would then have to come out and admit that he was a partial worker in this radical policy, that he was assisting them by giving them these waivers on decriminalization, basically saying, yeah, you don't have to enforce the law anymore. You can just let people do whatever they want. And now that David Eby is panicking, because rightfully so, the BC Conservatives are ahead of him with decided voters, he is now trying to walk back this policy, not really walk it back, just say don't use it next to a school, don't use meth next to a school. Now he's having to beg Justin Trudeau to put back in place criminal restrictions, and Justin Trudeau doesn't even want to acknowledge David Eby's existence. So Pierre Poilievre has posted multiple times about this over the last 48 hours. In this other post, he says, why is Trudeau refusing to approve the BC NDP's request to ban public use of meth, heroin, and illicit fentanyl? Because he supports this radical hard drug policy and wants to bring it to Toronto next. And that is true. The government of Toronto, and I even studied this for my master's degree, is now trying to bring the same stupid safe supply policies and decriminalization policies to Toronto. They already have a partial waiver from the federal government to not enforce criminal policy on drugs, but even that is a little bit weak, where some police sergeants and officers can still enforce it, but effectively the government is trying to pressure prosecutors to not actually push forward on any of these cases. It's a complete mess. It's both the problem of the Toronto City Hall as well as Justin Trudeau enabling them. They even, I believe, wrote instructions on how to basically avoid charging people for different illicit drug possession and use offenses. It's insane. But what I think Pierre Poilievre is doing is that he knows that Justin Trudeau is dead in the water. Justin Trudeau has no chance of winning the next election. A new poll just came out today showing that not only are the Conservatives ahead by 20 points like we've gotten used to, the Conservatives were at 44% in the latest poll that was released from Nanos or something like that. It's terrible for Justin Trudeau in the polling, and somehow even worse in the fundraising. The Conservatives are more than doubling the fundraising numbers of the Liberals. So the Conservatives could max out their spending limits in pretty much every single riding at this point. It's nuts. They're spending like $3 million a year just growing Pierre Poilievre's name recognition because they have that much money laying around. It's crazy. This is like the type of spending you would associate with like an American governor's race, where there's millions and millions of dollars being dumped on ads all over the place. But because Poilievre perceives, rightfully so, that Justin Trudeau cannot win the next federal election, he's training fire on BC NDP Premier David Eby, because he wants David Eby out of the way. because David Eby, as a premier of one of the bigger provinces in Canada, could try and stymie the criminal justice reforms that Pierre Poilievre wants to make. David Eby could try and refuse to enforce them, or his decriminalization policies could end up spreading to other provinces unless we nip this in the bud now and we defeat BC Premier David Eby in the next provincial election in BC to make sure that the rest of Canada understands that we're not going to put up with this. So that's why I think that Pierre Poilievre has been assisting the BC Conservative Party so much. The BC Conservatives basically didn't exist a year and a half ago, and now with decided voters, they're ahead. And I think it is extremely important to basically finally put an end to all this decriminalization stuff at the source before moving on to win the next federal election and making Pierre Poilievre the new premier. First, what needs to happen is John Rustad needs to become the premier of BC so we can stop the flow of radical ideas coming out of British Columbia. The vast majority of British Columbia residents are obviously not on board with decriminalization and a lot of these other radical policies, but the NDP and the Green Party are good enough at getting their voters out that they can kind of keep these very unpopular policies in place. So if they get taken out by the BC Conservatives, this can have a stop put to it. So then when Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, criminal justice policy can be sort of unified across the country, that we will have tough on crime, tough on drug use laws, that we can actually get control of crime in this country with. This is a great development that Pierre Poilievre is actually, in a certain sense, fairly generously using his time and political power to go after David Eby, because most other leaders, especially someone like Erin O'Toole, would purely focus on the federal matters. And if anyone asked them to even comment on provincial stuff, they would just say, I have no opinion, I'm a federal politician, and they would let the BC residents continue to suffer. We have to win each battle in order before we get to the federal election, and I think that this is one domino that needs to topple before we can even think about going after Justin Trudeau in 2025. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. I want to do my normal plug that I, Wyatt Claypool, am running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. If you live in the federal riding of Signal Hill and Ronald Liepert is currently your MP, he's not running for re-election. So buy a Conservative membership if you live in this riding. This is what the boundaries look like. And vote for me number 1 on your ballot. And also, you can donate to the TNT legal fund that I have under the Give, Send, Go link in the description below if you want to help us in this ridiculous lawsuit we are in with a Chinese billionaire developer who's trying to sue us for defamation and yet has not been able to provide any proof of defamation over 2 years now. It's so stupid. And then also in the description below, I have the link to our Telegram channel if you want to join the Telegram so you get all of the TNT content being posted in order and you don't have to rely on YouTube or other social media platforms to show you when we have new videos, because I know that sometimes they don't recommend our videos to you, even if you've been a long time subscriber. So you go for like 3 weeks not even seeing that we uploaded anything new unless you specifically go to the channel and scroll down. It's annoying, but you got to deal with it, and Telegram's a really great way of coping. Anyways, have a good one, everyone. This is it for me today. Why am I messing up my outro so much? I'm so sorry.